But so here we'll go into this next one that kind of reflects the last couple, and it is The Guardian again. We should have had better answers by now. Climate scientists baffled by unexpected pace of heating. In a remarkably candid essay in the journal Nature this March, one of the world's top climate scientists posited the alarming possibility that global heating may be moving beyond the ability of our experts to predict what happens next. Which, again, I know I've said this a lot of times. I'll continue to say it. Every time I think of it, I'm going to say it. But it makes me think of Art Bell, The Quickening, Global Superstorm, and The Day After Tomorrow. All three of those, bang, bang, bang. The 2023 temperature anomaly has come out of the blue, revealing an unprecedented knowledge gap, perhaps for the first time since about 40 years ago, when satellite data began offering modulars an unparalleled real-time view of Earth's climate system, wrote Gavin Schmidt. If this anomaly does not stabilize by August, he said, it could imply that a warming planet is already fundamentally altering how the climate system operates, much sooner than scientists had anticipated. Many in the science and environment community read these words with alarm. Was the leap in temperatures over the past 13 months, which has exceeded the global heating forecasts of experts, a sign of a systemic shift or just a temporary anomaly? If the world was warming even faster than scientists thought, it would seemingly jumping years ahead of predictions would mean that even more crucial decades of action had been lost. With August now here, Schmidt is a fraction less disturbed. He said the situation remains unclear, but the broader global heating trends are starting to move back into a direction of forecasts. What I'm thinking now is we aren't that far off from expectations. If we maintain this for the next couple of months, then we can say what happened in late 2023 was more of a blip than a systemic event, but it's still too early to call it. I am slightly less worried, but still humbled that we can't explain it. In an exclusive interview with The Guardian, Schmidt said records were beaten last year by a surprising margin and predicts 2024 is also likely to set a new peak, though the trend may nudge closer towards expectations. Looking back at the most extreme months of heat in the second half of 2023 and early 2024, when the previous records were beaten at times by more than 0.2 Celsius, an enormous anomaly, he said scientists were still baffled. We don't have a quantitative explanation for even half of it. That is pretty humbling. He added, we should have better answers by now. Climate modeling is an enterprise not set out to be super reactive. It is a slow, long process in which people around the world are volunteering their time. We haven't got our act together. This is not to doubt the underlying science of global heating, which more than 99.9% of climatologists agree is caused by human burning of gas, oil, coal, and forests. That alone is creating an alarming new temperature record every year, as the world experienced last month with the 2 consecutive days of heat in excess of anything in human record, and probably also anything more than 120,000 years ago. This is wreaking havoc over an even wider swath of the world, intensifying forest fires, droughts, floods, sea ice loss, and other manifestation of extreme weather. The worsening trend will continue until fossil fuels are stopped. Makes me think of the Texas quake article again, that we're just going into this oil stuff and we need to change our technology. No more hydraulic fracking. Absolutely not. So yeah, he said that it's going to continue as long as fossil fuels are going. As the climate continues to change, every decade it gets warmer. The impact is larger and the consequences are greater. So in that sense, we are already in uncharted territory with respect to climate change. And with every decade we go, more further out on that limb. So he's talking about us going further out on a limb, and that everything's getting worse, and that the longer we wait, the worse it gets, and the faster it speeds up. So this is more evidence that I'm pointing out that we're closer to change than ever. He's saying we're going out on a limb. We're going to fall off. Well, I hate to say it, but maybe we need to fall off, because that's going to be the only thing to stop this. And I don't mean like us as a species. I'm talking about us, our use of fossil fuels needs to fall off. So we're closer to change than ever. Again, in my opinion, things are getting worse every second, every day, every year, every decade we wait, it's worse, and the consequences are greater. That tells me that we are going to make a change. I guess I'm just an optimist, but the worse things get, the closer we are to people having enough, and we're going to change. Every fiber of my being tells me that we are on the precipice of a major change of society, that we are going to have a whole new understanding of some of this stuff soon. But it doesn't just happen on its own. It's people that have to make this stuff happen. We can't just wait for somebody to come and save us. There's not going to be any policymakers. I'll go back to this previous one. There's not going to be any policymakers that come and save our Earth. There will be no policymakers that save our communities or our families or us personally. I've read other articles of, remember the Norfolk train disaster, of what the residents said after the federal aid kept on failing them over and over for like a year and a half or 2 years or however long it had been. They said they gave up on help, that the federal agencies and all the people, all the government quote unquote people that are supposed to come and help will not come and help you whenever it needs to actually happen. The only people that will actually help us is us, ourselves, and our community, and we are the only ones that can make the change. The policymakers are going to sit on their back and collect money. We are the ones that have to organize and bring our ambition and our pain and our future, our hopes and dreams to these policymakers, or to change the system. Really, we need to change the system, but we need to also do immediate stuff with legislation, right? That would be called, we'll just call it a dual strategy of going both with systemic change and for legislation at the same time. But I just had to say that we are the ones that will save ourselves. So we should not wait for scientists or policymakers or Superman or anybody else or aliens to come and save the Earth. We have to do it ourselves. But we're almost at the end of the article, so I'll finish the article here. The recent El Nino added to global heat pressures. Scientists have also pointed out the fallout from January 2022 Honga Hapia volcanic eruption in Tonga, the ramping up of solar activity, and the run-up to a predicted solar maximum. So they're talking about global heat rising from the fallout of the Tonga explosion. I can't say that whether that did or didn't. We did think that for a long time, but I will also say that July 26th, 23 days ago, aerosols, water vapor from Tonga eruption cooled the Earth, researchers say, and that a large volcanic eruption significantly cooled the global climate while blocking sunlight with aerosols. So we've been going through a cooling effect. While this guy is saying that, not just him, but all of the science, 99% of climatologists are saying that global heating is getting worse, and he's specifically talking about 2023, the second half of 2023. So right before that, this is talking about mid-January 2022, that it injected all of this. So we were in a cooling trend. What's going to happen when we come out of the cooling trend? Once again, it's like this guy's saying they can't explain it. They have no idea. But Schmidt said nonetheless of these possible causes was sufficient to account for a spike in temperatures. I had to point that out with the volcano. Sorry for the interjection. But he's saying that all of these different things, the volcano, the solar activity, that all of these El Nino, that it added all of the heat. So what's going to happen whenever it comes out? And Schmidt said he hoped a clearer picture would emerge by the time of the American Geophysical Union meeting in December. So we have that to look forward to this December. And we will follow this story very closely. One of the most worrying theories to emerge is that the Earth is losing its albedo, which is the ability of the planet to reflect heat back into space. This is mainly because there is less white ice in the Arctic, Antarctic, and mountain glaciers. Peter Cox, a professor at Exeter University, noted on X that this is contributing hugely to the acceleration of global warming. It would also suggest that the recent records are not just freak conjunction of factors. On July 29th, the total extent of sea ice was at a record low for the date, and nearly 4 million square kilometers, an area bigger than India, below 1980 to the 2010 average, according to Zachary Labbe, a climate scientist at the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It continues to melt rapidly because temperatures in some parts of Antarctica recently hit 24 Celsius above the average for the time of year in the middle of the austral winter. Antonio Gutierrez, the Secretary General of the United Nations, warned everyone recently that Earth is becoming hotter and more dangerous for everyone, everywhere. He pointed out that the scorching conditions killed 1,300 pilgrims during the Hajj in Saudi Arabia, shut down tourist attractions in Europe's sweatbox cities, and closed schools across Asia and Africa. Temperatures above 50 Celsius used to be a rarity, confined to 2 or 3 global hotspots. But the World Meteorological Organization noted that at least 10 countries have reported this level of searing heat in the past year. In Iran, the heat index, a measure that also includes humidity, has come perilously close to 60 Celsius, far above the level considered safe for humans. So there will be places that are uninhabitable. And I think that there is, I don't want to go too off track here, but I think that there's some technologies that are being used right now by some, or probably multiple factions on Earth to influence the weather. If you look up Operation Popeye, Operation Commando Lava from Vietnam 50 years ago, they were changing the water cycle to try to flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So if they were doing that 50 years ago, what are they doing today? Heat waves are now commonplace elsewhere, killing the most vulnerable, worsening inequality, and threatening the well-being of future generations. UNICEF calculates a quarter of the world's children are already exposed to frequent heat waves, and this will rise to almost 100% of the children on Earth will be affected by heat waves by mid-century. That's 20 years from now. The pace of change is disorienting. Schmidt says that there is a 72% chance that 2024 will beat last year's heat record. The likelihood will rise still higher if there is no cooling by La Nina in December. While some argue that the world will soon pass the lower Paris Agreement guardrail of 1.5 Celsius of heating above the pre-industrial average, Schmidt says the more important goal should be to phase out carbon emissions as quickly as possible. I agree with that completely. What should be motivating people is that every 1/10 of a degree of warming, the impacts will increase. This is the fundamental equation. It doesn't matter where we are now, but we have to get to net zero. The faster that happens, the happier we will be. At times, he acknowledged that his work puts him in a bind because as a scientist, he wants to forecast about global heating to be accurate, but as a human, he would rather be proved wrong by an overestimate. We would all rather be wrong than right on this. This is one of the things that skeptics don't understand. So I'll just say, again, I know I've kind of already said this, but I'll just try to say it really quick, that he's saying we need to change our technology, and we desperately need to. He's saying that we need to cut carbon emissions as quickly as possible. Our carbon emissions are linked to our biggest industries, and I don't even mean factories, I mean corporations, I should say. Our biggest corporations are linked directly to carbon emissions. The military, biggest carbon emitter of anybody, even bigger than the corporations. So all of this fighting and greed and extraction is literally destroying the planet. And we have so many technologies that we could use that are not carbon intensive that we do not use because they're suppressed and oppressed by these institutions that make so much money off of having the oil stability. And I'll just give an example of the petrodollar, that America had forced the entire earth to do all transactions in the dollar for any sort of oil or energy type of exchange. That was called the petrodollar agreement. And as far as I know, Saudi did not sign back on that, but that's just an example of what I'm talking about, that the stability, we tied the stability of the dollar to the stability of oil. So if we change it off of oil, we're affecting the dollar. This is what this is all about. This is what this is all about. And even alternative energy and UFO stuff. If you guys haven't figured out that it's about oil yet, then I don't know what to say. But it is so clearly about profit. But I'll just I'll skip past the Tonga one. I just wanted to mention that. But here we are. We're gonna go up. We hit the bottom. Don't worry. We're not going any further down. We've hit the bottom. We are gonna go back up now. So making Mars livable, efficient terraforming with engineered nanoparticles, and they were talking about doing GMO moss and algae recently. So we have a lot of different technologies that we could terraform Mars with. But we'll start with a groundbreaking study published on August 7th in the Journal of Science Advances. Researchers from the University of Chicago and Northwestern and Central Florida proposed a revolutionary approach towards terraforming Mars. This is a new method using engineered dust particles released to the atmosphere could potentially warm the red planet by more than 50 degrees Fahrenheit to temperatures suitable for microbial life. A crucial first step towards making Mars habitable. The proposed method is over 5,000 times more efficient than previous schemes to globally warm Mars, representing a significant leap forward in our ability to modify the Martian environment. What sets this approach apart is that the resources are readily available on Mars, making it much more feasible than earlier proposals that relied on importing materials from Earth or mining rare Martian resources. While this strategy may take decades, it appears logistically easier than other plans proposed. And this talks about using a warming barrier to allow liquid water that is not as high as previously thought. Astronauts still won't be able to breathe the Mars thin air, making the planet suitable for humans to walk on the surface of the planet. That will require much more work. But perhaps groundwork could be laid by making the planet habitable for microbes and food crops that could gradually add oxygen to the atmosphere, much as they have done for Earth during its geologic history. And so yeah, that's just like one type of thing, and I'm not going to read the whole article here, but the reason that I put this after all of that, to climb us out of the pit that we just got dug, or that we're hopping out of, is that if we can engineer Mars with nanoparticles or algae or whatever, if we have the ability to terraform Mars, we have the ability to terraform Earth. So like, they're talking about this cataclysmic Earth changes and stuff in the past, articles that I was just reading. Well, we have technology that we can use to change stuff. Now, it may get to the point where it's really bad before we do it, but regardless of how bad it gets, we have technology that we can change all of Earth. And it's getting better and better. They talked about it being 5,000 times more efficient, or 5,000% more efficient. Which one was it? I'm trying to find. Either one. That it's more efficient, and we're going to continue to get stuff that's more efficient. And we could use algae or whatever here on Earth that we do have. I mean, it's 5,000 times more efficient, it said. So I just wanted to point that out, that we have many, many different technologies that we can affect stuff with. And here we are with a nuclear fusion reactor created by school teenager successfully achieves plasma. And this kind of echoes everything else that I've been saying. A student has successfully deployed a small nuclear fusion reactor as part of his A-levels. The 17-year-old built the reactor to generate neutrons as part of his extended project qualification. Notably, Cesar Mincarini's work is claimed to be the only nuclear reactor built in a school environment. Showcased at the Cambridge Science Festival recently, the nuclear reactor achieved plasma a few months ago. It also gave Mercari an A in his A-level result. It wasn't easy for Mercari to convince his teachers for the project. The faculty members even thought the project could be dangerous and pose a significant threat. The college was initially concerned with this project, which I have also used for my EPQ. They were concerned it was dangerous. However, we did full risk assessments and the staff have been very supportive. Finally, after spending 18 months of hard work on the project, Mercari successfully developed the small reactor. The team aims to apply for a degree in engineering, so he doesn't even have an engineering degree yet, and he's doing this. However, before that, he has an ambition to work at University of Bristol's Interface and Analysis Center. Mercari maintained that the goal of the reactor is to create conditions that are required for fusion. However, the project couldn't get the same pressure that's generated by the sun due to its own gravity. Therefore, to make atoms hot enough, the team used high voltage, which is fascinating. That's really interesting. Describing Mercari as outstanding, the college's principal, Dr. Julian Davies, claimed that the team will make a significant impact on the energy industry in the future. He also termed Cesar's work was built in more than a year extremely exciting. We want to give our students the opportunity to work on projects that interest them, as well as teaching them how to pass exams and be brave enough in enabling them to take risks and develop projects that are applicable to real-life situations. Mercari has been outstanding in his work ethic and will no doubt make a significant impact on the energy industry of the future. And there's a video if you want to watch that. This is really good. And before I go on, I was about to just go past it, but so this is a school teenager, I guess a high schooler, basically, equivalently of a high schooler made a fusion reactor. If a high schooler can make a fusion reactor, not fission, fusion, which cannot be melted down, it won't explode, has no dangerous elements to it. If a high schooler can do that, why are we destroying the Texas subterranean infrastructure to get oil so far underneath the earth that we can't even pump it out? They were talking about on Mars that all this oil, all the water is so far under the surface that we can't reach it, and that it's super far in the fractured mid-crust, water-saturated fractured mid-crust. That's what they're getting in Texas, is this oil that's super, super far down that they have to pressurize the ground with toxic and radioactive chemicals and water that leaches out everywhere to get this oil. So why are we doing that if the high schooler can create this stuff? And if a high schooler can create it, it has most definitely been mastered on a private scale. I would say that this is definitely in probably multiple countries, government, libraries, academic type of stuff. They're probably looking at this stuff. It's been oppressed. It's been suppressed. It's been held back from humanity. Honestly, all of humans have been held back from this. I mean, I just read a thing that just said that 100% of children by mid-century will be affected by frequent heat waves. And we have hidden fusion reactors, probably on the moon too, if you've been following with the podcast for a while, all over the earth. People need to wake up to this, and they are waking up to it. And like, this is evidence of a high schooler just made a fusion reactor. That is blowing my mind right now. It's insane news. We need to spread this everywhere. I mean, it's like, this should be going on TikTok. And I urge you guys to look up CIA and Department of Defense in charge of TikTok and the algorithms, because that's who controls the algorithms. So that's why this stuff is not trending. They want divisive content to trend on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and all of these different things. They want us to be fighting against each other, and the algorithms urge people to do that. And that's where we're at right now. That's why these high school nuclear fusion reactor is not trending, even though it was less than 24 hours ago. We just got to wake up to this sort of stuff. And China's robot with light-driven system can be used like a bullet to transform ballistics. And here we are with, okay, so fusion, sorry to go back and forth here, but fusion can be used as a propulsion method. Well, this is a brand new propulsion method as well.